Have you ever stopped to think about what's more terrifying, a made-up monster, or the truth Hollywood decided to retell? Welcome to the channel. Here we explore the stories that made filmmakers turn real nightmares into horror movies that haunted generations, because the truth, it's far scarier than any fictional script. In this video, we'll uncover the most terrifying horror movies based on true stories, films rooted in demonic possessions, verified murders, and connections that go far beyond the screen. If you want the darkest side of true story horror, subscribe to the channel for more curiosities and entertainment. And don't forget, comment which movie stuck with you the most. Let's begin. Let's start with the ultimate classic, The Exorcist. Released in 1973, it's not just a masterpiece of horror, it's inspired by one of the most documented cases of demonic possession in modern history. The story begins in 1949, in Maryland, USA. A 14-year-old boy known as Robbie Mannheim began showing unexplained behavior. Objects moved on their own, strange sounds echoed through the house, and his voice shifted into something inhuman. Desperate, his family sought medical help. Doctors found nothing, so they turned to the church. A priest was called in to investigate. What he witnessed stayed with him forever. Behaviors that defied rational explanation. Superhuman strength. Knowledge of languages the boy had never learned. Writer William Peter Blatty researched the case in depth. What he created was a cinematic version that captured the essence of the unexplainable. In the film, young Regan MacNeil transforms in ways that make you wonder, where does illness end? And where does the supernatural begin? What makes The Exorcist truly disturbing isn't just the groundbreaking effects. It's the idea that somewhere, something like this really happened. Robbie's case was never fully explained. To this day, it remains a mystery. Now we enter a different kind of horror. Supernatural terror isn't always the most frightening. Sometimes the real nightmare comes from a human mind. Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock in 1960, is one of the greatest thrillers ever made. And its inspiration, a real-life murder case that shocked America. Ed Gein, a name that should have been erased from history but can't be. In 1957, police in Wisconsin searched Gein's home. What they found defied comprehension. He had committed multiple murders, and did things with bodies that I won't describe here. But understand this, he turned his house into something like a private museum of horror. Hitchcock didn't adapt Gein's story directly, but the core is there. Norman Bates is a fictional echo of Gein, a disturbed man, obsessed with his mother, living inside a reality warped by delusion. That shower scene, the one that changed cinema forever, draws its power from real brutality. And that's why Psycho still unsettles audiences today, because behind the fiction was a real person capable of unimaginable acts. Switching directions again, this isn't a horror movie in the traditional sense, but it's one of the most disturbing films ever made. The Silence of the Lambs 1991 won Best Picture at the Oscars, and its inspiration, not one but several real serial killer cases. Hannibal Lecter is a composite built from traits found in multiple documented killers, but the real dread comes from Buffalo Bill, whose character draws from Ed Gein again, along with other criminals like Gary Heidnik and Ted Bundy. What makes this film terrifying is that it doesn't need demons. It explores the psychology of evil, the human mind's ability to cross lines most of us can't even imagine. When you watch The Silence of the Lambs, you're not just watching fiction, you're seeing a distorted but recognizable reflection of crimes that really happened, people who really existed, and that link between the screen and reality is what turns this thriller into something truly haunting. Back to the supernatural, this time with a case that's less famous, but deeply unsettling. The haunting in Connecticut is inspired by claims surrounding a family who moved into a house in Connecticut that had reportedly been used as a funeral home. Soon after, strange events began. The family's son began suffering from frightening visions, hearing voices, and a rapid decline in health. They believed the house carried something dark, something tied to the dead. Now, you might argue there are psychological explanations, and you may be right, but the terrifying part is this: the family lived it. They felt the fear in real time, and the film captures that helplessness, that uncertainty. What makes this story effective is that it lives in the gray area. Not clearly supernatural, not fully explainable, and it's inside that uncertainty that real fear grows. And now, our final case, one of the most widely documented in pop paranormal history. The Conjuring 2013 is based on the case files of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren Specificki. The Perron family case in Rhode Island in the early 1970s. The family claimed their home was haunted. Years of reported activity, knocks in the walls, objects moving, apparitions, possession like events investigated by the Warrens. famous and controversial figures in paranormal history. Director James Wan's film follows many of the documented claims closely, even if it intensifies the drama for cinema. Yes, the Warrens are controversial, and some cases have been questioned, but the Perron family has maintained their story for decades. They lived in that house, they insist it was real, and when you watch The Conjuring, you're watching a dramatization of fear that at least for that family was reality. So we return to the question from the beginning. Why does fiction imitate the nightmare? The answer goes deeper than you think. Psychologically, humans are drawn to fear. It triggers adrenaline, it sharpens our senses, it makes us feel alive. But there's something else. When horror is based on true events, it hits something primal inside us. It confronts us with the possibility that what we're watching could have happened, or worse, could happen again. The movies we covered today, from the demonic possession behind The Exorcist to the real murders echoed in Psycho, all share a common thread. They explore the thin line between what we know is real and what we fear might be real. And that's why true story horror is so powerful. It's not just entertainment, it's a mirror reflecting our deepest anxieties, dark curiosities that make us question the world around us. This fascination isn't just morbid, it's a way to process fear, to face the unknown, to confront vulnerability without leaving the safety of our seat. Quick recap. We saw how The Exorcist drew from the documented case of Robbie Mannheim, how Psycho was inspired by Ed Gein, how The Silence of the Lambs pulled from real serial killers, how The Haunting in Connecticut captured a family's nightmare in a house with a dark past, and how The Conjuring dramatized one of the most famous Warren cases. They all share an uncomfortable truth. When fiction is rooted in reality, it becomes far more terrifying. If you enjoyed this dive into dark cinema and the shadowy links between film and reality, subscribe to the channel for more true story horror, curiosities, and entertainment. Hit like if this video got under your skin, and in the comments tell me which movie stuck with you the most, which true story disturbed you the most, and what film should we break down next. Remember, sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what doesn't exist, it's what existed, what exists, and what could exist again. Until the next video, stay scared.